They say history is our greatest teacher because history repeats itself. What we see in the world today has happened before. Peoples displaced, cultures erased, identities pressured into silence. If you read the past, if you look with open eyes, you'll see the same patterns written again and again across centuries. So open your eyes, do your research, and stand together as humans. Because what once happened to others can happen to anyone. Among the clearest examples of this truth is the story of the Moriscos. Their story begins in 1492, when the banners of Castile and Aragon rose above Granada. This was not just the end of 8 centuries of Muslim rule in Iberia, it was the beginning of a quieter, more painful chapter for those who remained. At first, hope survived. Through the capitulations of Granada, Muslims were promised security, the right to keep their religion, their mosques, their language, their customs. For a brief moment, coexistence seemed possible. Arabic still echoed in the streets, Quranic schools continued teaching, and life carried on in the old neighborhoods of Granada, Valencia, Aragon, and La Mancha. But the ink had barely dried on that treaty before the promises were broken. By 1499, forced conversion swept across Granada under Cardinal Francisco Jiménez de Cisneros. Baptism was no longer a choice, it was a requirement. Those who converted, whether willingly or under swords and threats, became known as New Christians, or Moriscos. Yet conversion was on paper only. Behind closed doors they whispered the Shahada, prayed in secret corners, fasted in Ramadan under the excuse of seasonal dieting, washed before prayer in hidden patios, whispered Quranic verses to their children in the language of their ancestors. They learned to navigate 2 identities, Christians in public, Muslims in private, a people forced to live between worlds. But double lives attract suspicion. The machinery of the Spanish Inquisition soon turned its gaze toward the Moriscos, hunting for signs of forbidden faith, refusal to eat pork, avoiding wine, the washing of bodies before burial, Arabic writings on walls or door frames, lighting lamps before dawn during Ramadan. Any of these could mean torture, confiscation of property, or death. From this pressure emerged a hidden literature known as al-Jamiado, Spanish written in Arabic script, a secret lifeline to preserve identity. In al-Jamiado, Moriscos recorded Quranic commentaries, supplications, and poetry, small acts of resistance in ink. But the Morisco experience was not the same everywhere. In Valencia and Aragon, repression led to rebellion. The mountains of Las Alpujarras witnessed one of the most dramatic uprisings between 1568 and 1571. When royal troops crushed the rebellion, punishment was harsh: mass deportations, forced dispersal, and a total ban on Arabic language and customs. By then, the Moriscos were trapped, isolated from Christians who doubted their loyalty, yet separated from Muslims by forced conversion. They were strangers in their own land. Under King Philip III, fear and politics sealed their fate. The crown accused Moriscos of secretly allying with the Ottomans and the Barbary states. And so, between 1609 and 1614, Spain issued one of its darkest decrees, the expulsion of the Moriscos. Families were dragged from their homes, stripped of property, and shipped across the Mediterranean. Some died before reaching shore. Others arrived in Morocco, Algeria, Tunis, or Istanbul, lands where Arabic or Turkish were spoken, but where they themselves spoke Castilian and Catalan. In North Africa, they rebuilt parts of their lost world. They introduced irrigation systems, silk industries, music, crafts, and architecture. Cities like Tetuan, Fez, Saleh, and Rabat still carry the marks of their Andalusian touch. Those who remained in Spain were absorbed over generations, their past swallowed by silence. Yet in some families, grandparents still whisper that they descend from Moros de Castilla or Moros de Granada. The tragedy of the Moriscos is not merely religious. It is human. It is the story of a people punished for identity. Who they prayed to, how they spoke, what they believed, all used against them. It reminds us that civilizations do not fall in a single night. Sometimes they fade through pressure, exile, and erasure. Yet memories survive in music, in food, in architecture, in names, and in hearts. And that circles back to where we began. History repeats itself. When we ignore the past, we sleepwalk into repeating its mistakes. When we read, learn, question, and stand together as humans, we break that cycle. The Moriscos teach us that identity is not a crime. Faith is not a crime, and heritage is not a crime. They show us what happens when a society chooses fear over coexistence. Their story lives today, not in the palaces of Granada, but in the resilience of those who refuse to forget.